Tracy. You know me as host of the Today Show in Halton and also host of Unstoppable You. And I have unstoppable, insightful advice today with Dawn Campbell from Equinox. And Dawn is going to share with us the very recently timed legislation that's coming in that's important for businesses. So whether you are an employer or a business that need to know this, or whether you're a client or an employee, today is going to be super useful for how you make your websites more accessible and how you make your services more accessible online. So please stay tuned. Be right back with also this very fun guest who's also someone I'm proud to call my friend, Dawn Campbell. We'll be back right after these messages.
All about inclusion and really giving everyone a fair say.
Welcome to the Today Show. This is our flagship show. I am Unstoppable Tracy.
I am Zach Damon.
It is a pleasure to be here. I am excited. What is up?
We have a great show today.
Jay Stoyan here for the Disability Channel, the world's only inclusive channel for and by persons with disabilities.
Get ready to be inspired, everyone.
We have people watching from all over the world, but also all over Ontario.
We also take a concerted attention in the veterans community.
In moments of stress and trauma, we can get a hold of ourselves.
To help make a difference for people with disabilities, to show people how to love themselves or their disability.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me, giving this platform for myself and other people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this episode of the Disability Channel of Detroit. Please tune in next time.
Welcome to the Today Show and Unstoppable You with Unstoppable Tracy and my unstoppable guest, Dawn Campbell. Dawn, it is wonderful to have you on the show today.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
I am excited to be talking to you in this whole, and it's not even a new role. I want to say new role, but I've known you from the Canadian Paralympic Committee, and then I knew you in the Rick Hansen Foundation world. And now you are like crushing roadblocks in the online world in as an account manager in a whole new reality. So will you tell our listeners a little bit about your new self?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I hope that you're hearing me okay.
Perfect.
I'm super excited to be here. So I am an account manager with a company called Equinox. And that is, again, a product that that Onyx Networking Canada and Onyx Networking own. So I have been in the accessibility space for many, many years, like over 20 years now. It stems from a really personal place because when I was 19 years old, I was in a head-on vehicle accident. And I had a lot of damage done to my right leg. So as you mentioned, I have a lot of history working in accessibility, in inclusion. And 3 years ago now, I can't believe it's almost been 3 years already, I entered into the world of digital accessibility. And I didn't just sort of enter it, I actually sort of stood on the end of a diving board and dove as deep as I possibly could to figure out what I saw was this huge gap in awareness. And that's how my role sort of came about with the Equinox team, because I realized that most people see accessibility as ramps and elevators.
Yeah.
Right? And the digital world, as in websites and document creation, has really just started to get more attention, both here in Ontario, across Canada, and really broadly across the world. There's some really amazing people doing work in this space, and I have just a small, very specific sort of piece of digital accessibility that I do with my role in my company.
Yeah, which is a big gap. And you think it would have been one of the quicker, faster immersion in everybody included, nobody left behind. And it's this massive opportunity to delight hundreds of thousands of your other customers, not just people with disabilities. It's such a great resource and tool and makes complete business sense. And I learned a lot of that from you. How come it makes so much business sense?
Well, again, we live in a really digital world right now, Tracy. And again, we live in a culture, especially with COVID, and especially with there's been this huge shift, even in this past year with COVID-19, where people are now working from home and we are shopping from home like none before, right? So again, when we're making when we're making our websites and when we're creating documents and putting on them on websites, if you come at it from an accessibility approach, you're just going to be benefiting and reaching everyone and more customers. So, it was interesting because my background has been in the physical space, right? In the built environment space, in the breaking down mindsets and attitudes. And, a lot of people sort of ask me, how did that transition? Like, how did you go from that focus on the built environment to the focus of the digital world? And what was your biggest learning? Yeah. And, I have to say, philosophically, Tracy, the digital world of accessibility is experiencing the exact same problem as the built environment. And what I mean by that is we're still building things wrong, right? So we're trying so hard in the built environment that every new building, we know we have so many champions, especially here in Ontario and across Canada and across the world. We have these amazing champions who are fighting to change building codes and to make sure that when you build a new building, it just obviously gets a ramp. Well, again, now I've moved into this digital world and I'm seeing the same things happen as what I saw in the built environment world. We're creating websites for businesses. We're creating documents for people, and we're not thinking about accessibility when we do that. So you end up leaving a big portion of people out, especially people who heavily rely on screen readers. So do you know what a screen reader is?
I know what a screen reader is, but I think just in case we have any listeners that don't, and if you could face the sun as much as you can.
Yeah, so the screen readers, right? So again,
so that the people reading lips can read your lips.
So a screen reader, again, is a piece of adapted, accessible technology that people with disabilities use in order to have websites and have documents read aloud to them. So when most people think of screen readers, we automatically assume that it's people that are blind.
Yeah.
And yes, that's 100% true. But right now, we're also in an aging society where we have a lot of people, and the Canadian Council of Blindness in Canada, Canadian Council of the Blind, just did this amazing research study that really helps and they just went public with it a couple weeks ago, in terms of what are the statistics of actual numbers of people with just vision disabilities in general. And so again, when we're talking about building accessible websites and building accessible documents, we're not just talking about blind people. We're talking about people who have dyslexia. We're talking about learning disabilities. We're talking about anybody who could get in a car accident today and end up hitting their head and having a concussion and having to do their work using a screen reader. So it's really a very broad topic that I love exploring.
Well, and the other cool thing I think is that, books that people are reading online and Otter that does, voice to text. And there's a lot of technology out there. and who knows which of those are tapping into that technology for the greater public. So for example, the YouTube owner that added scription to YouTube videos, and we say, okay, that's for people with hearing loss, but all of us, I don't know about you, but I turn that scription on when I'm watching Netflix. We all use it. So you just sort of expanded the number of people with visible and invisible disabilities, plus people that are not even considered having a disability, but also need to leverage this technology. But I'd like to throw in also the world is expanding online and leveraging some of these useful technologies to expand other customer service opportunities. And so there is so much potential here. And there's also a really hot topic right now here in Canada and Ontario. And so I don't want to leave our listeners hanging, but I need to take a break. I need to take a commercial break. So please be sure to stay tuned right after these messages, because Dawn is going to tune in with more tips, more tricks, and some enlightenment about a burning hot topic right now about why it's legislation and how you are accountable. And she's going to help us out and be a bit of a lifeline. So stay tuned for right after these messages to receive that lifeline. We'll be right back with Unstoppable Tracy and Dawn Campbell.
Would you like to donate to our employment programs? Please follow the link below to donate through PayPal. All proceeds go to our programs.
Hi, my name is Julia Ramaldi. Please come join us on the Disability Channel. Please stay tuned. We have amazing guests.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. And I have Dawn Campbell, an account manager up here in Canada with an international or North American?
Oh, we're international.
I thought so. International company about online accessibility, which is just extraordinary. And she was talking to us about some of the pieces that are delighting customers and how it's much bigger than just someone with vision loss with an online screen reader. And it's actually particularly important right now. And you know, it was Dawn that helped me realize, Tracy, be ready. So are there any tips or tricks or thoughts that you want to share to get our listeners, our employers, our businesses, and our users helping educate? What do we need? What's going on right now?
So I think it's really important for people to kind of understand that in the world, we have accessibility legislation related to websites. Okay, primarily the World Wide Web Consortium and the Web Accessibility Content Guidelines, sometimes known as WCAG. These are principles, okay, across the world that the world has adopted in different countries to make sure that the websites and the documents we're creating are fully accessible. Now, there's a whole lot of components to that. What's really important to know is that now the United States has had laws for many, many years, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which led to a Section 508, which has led to all kinds of work in different states around accessibility. Some of the states that are really far ahead thinking about document and website accessibility that comes to mind are Florida and California. Oh. Now, across the world, the European Union has some amazing legislation. In Canada, we're getting there. So in Canada, for over 15 years, we've had the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Right? For a long time, it's applied to customer service, transportation, how you talk to people with disabilities that come in to your organization, and it has these different elements to it.
5 standards, yeah.
Right? Those 5 standards. So what has just come into effect here in Ontario? Now, there's actually really been 2 big pieces of legislation that are really going to start having tremendous impact. One, yes, is in Ontario specifically, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. As of January 1st, if you are a public sector organizations. So all of our local governments, right? All of our universities and colleges here in Ontario. If you are a company that has more than 50 employees, more than 20 employees, you actually have to submit by June 30th of this month, you have to submit an accessibility assessment as to how your organization's doing. If you're over 50 employees, a piece of that actually has to do with websites. And all websites in Ontario for over 50 employees, public sector, have to be WCAG, which is that Web Accessibility Content Guidelines 2.0 AA compliant. Now, a lot of people say, like, what is that? And I mean, we don't have nearly enough time, Tracy, to get into what all that means. But it does mean you have to start thinking about the accessibility of your website. And if you look at a lot of our local governments, they've done a really good job. And again, colleges, universities, we're starting to really think about how easy it is to navigate a website. COVID has brought that on for a lot of companies, right? If it's not easy, nobody's going to stay there and buy, right?
Yeah.
If it takes you 16 clicks to check out somewhere, why do I want to be there, right? People are going to gravitate to what's easy.
Yeah.
Now, website accessibility goes beyond that. There's two really big pieces of that. And that is, of course, what it looks like. So the color contrast that you're using on your website, the font size that you're using on your website, things like the visual look of it. But then there's also the non-visual look of it. And this is where I work with a lot of companies and governments right now around PDF. PDF is sort of this world that is a love-hate for Dawn, because I love it because it gives me a job. Most of us on our team, we live this ironic sort of existence where if it wasn't around, that'd be okay too. Because the reality is most people don't realize, and hey, I was an accessibility champion advocate, for like 20 years. And it's only been like the last 5 that I realized when I create a PDF document, if I don't create it with accessibility in mind, you hit save as PDF on any platform you've created that on, Microsoft Word, doesn't matter, right? You hit save as PDF, it becomes one big image.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So
it's been a nightmare for me, like PDFs, like when without typing and wanting to copy paste, it's just an image. I can't copy the content that I need.
That's right. And I mean, there's been a lot of reasons why people love the world of PDF. There's a lot of illusion still that it's very, very secure. Now, anybody can purchase Adobe Acrobat DC Pro license for, a few $100s a year, and they can crack into any PDF and modify it. So kind of gone is that mentality from 20 years ago. And really, if you're making something accessible, one of the formats to avoid is PDF unless you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so the challenge right now here in Ontario and with a lot of our governments, especially at the federal level too, is that we have archived hundreds and thousands of documents in PDF. And now companies are having to kind of clean house, figure out what's important, and then they have to send PDFs out for remediation. And that's where our company can help. We have software and we have services that can help make sure and ensure your PDF documents are accessible.
Thank goodness.
The other piece of legislation I want to mention quick, Trace, is just the Accessible Canada Act. Because as much as Ontario has been important, we all, I'm sure you've talked about, I know you've talked about it with many guests before, is that Accessible Canada Act.
Yep.
Now, right? So again, this is federally. This is going to impact our banks. This is going to impact so many organizations, right, that again receive and get federal money for federal funding, and all of our federal departments are right across the country, right? Again, there is a strand within that talks about information and communication. So if you don't know anything about document accessibility, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Get ahead of the curve. I mean, you're ahead, but you're not ahead, right? Get ahead, be proactive, because if you know nothing about it at all, it's just a really good time to start asking questions, because it is coming. And and you want your products, you want your services, you want them to reach everyone.
Everyone for accessibility and everyone to delight the future of customer service. And whether you're in Halton, Port Perry like you, or Toronto like me, or Ontario, or Canada, or international, right? This is what's great about you can tap into Dawn to leverage these services and learn more about it, because you want to be like YouTube where you blow up. And so this is the way to do it. Or if you're a customer that's having trouble accessing these services, you have a right now to demand those services, especially for those of our viewers that are in Halton, Cogeco. It is a right. By June 30th, those plans need to be in. And by January 1st, they were meant to be accommodated. And so wherever you are in the world, and especially for our local listeners, this is something that is fabulous for everyone, everywhere, included, with whether you've had a head injury, whether you've got vision loss, whether you're like the majority of the population in the entire world, actively aging. No longer is it people under 14, it's everybody's over 55, the majority of the population, wherever you live in the entire world, not just here in Ontario. It is a service that your online people are going to need. And so it's exciting times.
It is exciting times. And, Tracy, I often think about, like our Statistics Canada, right?
Yeah.
And most of us just finished completing a big census. Some of us got the long, some of us got the short. And I often think about, how would funding change here in Canada and around, throughout Canada? How would that change if every person who wore glasses like myself actually disclosed that they thought of themselves as having a vision disability?
Yeah.
Right? I wear glasses, right? This is a device that uses to help me see better. Right. And I often think, can you imagine how many people, right, if we actually recorded that? Yes, I'm a person with a disability because I wear glasses. Would that change the face of funding? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And how about the denial of glasses like me? I definitely need glasses. And there's so many things that I can't leverage now and online trying to see and what I look like after many, many hours. And so it's just, and I have a physical disability, but I don't ever think of my vision loss. And you know what? My vision loss that I'm in denial about, and because of lockdown, haven't really done anything about, is much more impacting than having no hands. Like being able to use online long term all day, right? And I'm in denial about it.
You're doing online. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all day
right?
long.
So, I
So-
hear you. It's pretty exciting. And I get, as you can see, I get pretty fired up when I get the opportunity to really help organizations sort of look at, okay, it's okay. It's okay if you've never heard of website accessibility. It's okay if you've never heard of document remediation, right? But just don't keep ignoring it. You're not doing your company any favor if you, and it's, it is amazing how many, again, how generalized and how this conversation goes from one thing to another, right? Working with diversity and equity specialists and professionals around the globe. It's like you start with one conversation about website accessibility, and then it leads to talking about documents, and then it leads to talking about social media. And then you realize that it's not just the web design team that's in charge. It's the graphic designers who are creating stuff. It's the marketing person who's posting on social media and doesn't realize that every time he or she posts a picture, there should be some alternative text that goes along with that picture, right? And so it really turns into a whole cultural change, which is pretty exciting.
Dawn, thank you for joining Unstoppable You and the Today Show in the Halton region on your TV. So grateful to have you with me today, a lifelong friend and a lifelong advocate and a lifelong resource, first from the built environment and now with the web world and the PDF nightmares. So friends, please reach out to Dawn. I promise you'll probably laugh as well as get some business done because she's a great ally out there and fun to talk to. Dawn, how do people find you?
Oh, well, I mean, my email is really simple. It's just Dawn, DAWN, at Onyx, ONIXNET.com, onyxnet.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, all of the social media. So, and of course, our website, equidox.co, EQUIDOX.co.
Equidox.co. And you can find Dawn through myself. I will definitely connect you if you have any trouble with any of those, but you'll see those on the screen for folks and in the notes on the YouTube channel when this goes live on TV. Thank you for the streamers watching us. Thank you.
Unstoppable, you're amazing. Thank you. Keep up the amazing work.
Many positive thoughts your way. Thanks for watching, listeners, to Unstoppable You and Your TV with Dawn Campbell with Equidox.co and Unstoppable Tracy. Tune in next week for more.